I am Nick Roberts, the grandson of Captain Fred Roberts, the editor of the famous French newspaper, the Wipers Times. My grandfather and the sub-editor Lieutenant Pearson were part of the 12th Battalion Sherwood Foresters, who arrived in Ypres in early 1916. The paper was so called as British soldiers referred to Ypres as Wipers. As you stand in the main square of Ypres and survey the ornate buildings around you, it's hard to believe that the whole area was razed to the ground during World War I and then later completely rebuilt. Although the town remained unoccupied, it was the scene of continual bombardment throughout the war. This was once a very beautiful medieval city, and today it again appears to be so. The city architect, Jules Coumans, who had been overseeing the restoration of many of the historic buildings before the war, wanted to rebuild Ypres exactly as it had been before the destruction. He led the rebuilding, and within 5 years, much of the work on the private housing and public buildings was finished. However, the most famous building, the Cloth Hall, took many more years to be restored. Starting in 1928, it was finally completed in 1967, interrupted as it was by the Second World War. The next reading by a visitor from the Wipers Times, Saturday, 26th of February, 1916, captures what it was like for those in Ypres in 1916. It is read by military historian Peter Doyle.
If you happen to be a fortunate visitor to Ypres in these energetic times, there's much to see and learn for those who move about with their eyes open. By a fortunate visitor, I mean when you chance to arrive on one of the quiet days. Days when the number of shells sent in by the Hun does not exceed 100 per hour, mealtimes accepted. You are then able to move about in comparative safety. As a visitor, one tried naturally to imagine something of what the historic old town looked like before modern artillery began to destroy the work of hundreds of years. And although one can see all these ruins of buildings, note the terrific effect of shell fire on the walls many feet thick, one somehow feels how impossible it is to describe what Ypres looks like. One has to see it to understand the awful, dead, forsaken appearance of the place. One is almost tempted to doubt if there isn't an overruling power for good in this world in which we live, and to attempt to reason that no possible good can come out of such an appalling misery and desolation. But surely this is another case of the finite mind coming into contact with the infinite. Then listen. Away to the east, a faint whistle through the air, then another, coming this way. An explosion, and the guide says, "They're shelling Hellfire Corner again." Then quiet again. And later on, as you wander across the square, you see the motor ambulances wending their way back to Pop with their loads of mauled humanity. Somebody's loved one, to be looked after and tended by skilled hands, with no effort spared to alleviate pain and repair the damage. And as you travel home, you will have many things to remember and think about after your visit to Ypres.